Chase Daniel joins us. Chase, I'll just start you with a super big softball, if that's all right. What do you remember about the Beastquake?
That's not a softball. That's a horrible, horrible memory for me.
Oh, is
I
it?
remember everything
really?
about it.
What do you mean?
Yes, God.
You were on the other sideline.
You're bringing up a scar, right? And it's not just from the Beastquake game. I've been a part of probably some of the most, famous playoff losses of all time, right? That started it in 2010. And then I was a part of the Minnesota Miracle. I was on the field on that game. I was on the field for the double doink game. I've been on the field for the first largest comeback, the largest comeback, and the second largest comeback in NFL playoff history, and been on the losing side of both. So thank you for bringing that up for me. I remember the stadium shaking, legitimately shaking. And I believe they were 7-9 and we were 11-5. And it was just not a good feeling at all.
All right, Chase, I will give you an actual softball here. This is Brady Henderson, by the way. I'm filling in. I cover the Seahawks for ESPN. I want to hear your just kind of a view from afar on the Seahawks and the moves that they made and what you think is a reasonable expectation for the Seahawks, given that, yeah, you've got a lot of continuity on defense, but you've got a whole new offense with a new coordinator, new quarterback, new receiver. What do you feel like is a reasonable expectation for the Seahawks this season?
Yeah, 10 wins. I think that's reasonable. I don't think that a lot of people outside of the Seattle area thought they'd win 10 games last year. And then they go and get rid of their best receiver, and their best quarterback, fire their offensive. Just a lot of change, right? And I would say, you asked earlier in the question how I felt from afar. I felt shocked, surprised maybe, when all this stuff with Geno Smith went down. Look, I know he didn't play up to standard, I guess you would say, last year, but he struggled with that offensive line. And if you look at the stats and the nerd stats, and I'm not really into it, but he's one of the best quarterbacks versus like a muddy pocket that the NFL has seen. He's extremely, extremely accurate throwing the football. And then you go to Sam Darnold, and you pretty much, it's a 1-for-1 switch. And I know Sam, and I think he's going to have another good year. Goes back with Klint Kubiak, but he won 14 games last year. And if you look at Sam's really advanced stats around muddy and murky pockets, it's not great. He doesn't do well under pressure. So I think the key for the Seahawks offense, or one of them at least, would be, hey, can we get that offensive line healthy and to play a little bit to a higher standard? But I do like that, JSN, I think, is a stud. You go out, you get Cooper Kupp. And then also with Klint Kubiak, I think he's the wild card here. You look at what really New Orleans is doing maybe the first 4 or 5 games of the year when they were healthy last year. They put up 47 points against Dallas. He's very, very particular in how he likes his schemes, obviously the Shanahan style. And he knows Sam. So it was interesting to see that. And it was interesting to see sort of how when the details of Sam Darnold's contract came out, right, that it was really a 1-year deal for $30-something million. I know there's a $100 million contract and stuff like this. So I don't want to say this is a prove-it year to Sam, but they did draft Jalen Milroe in the 3rd round.
Yeah, we're going to get to all of that. We're going to get to Kubiak, we're going to get Jalen, a bunch of that. I want to play a cut yesterday, Mike McDonald. And I don't know if you ever went against him. He's probably a position coach, Chase. So yeah. I don't know if you ever went against that kind of scheme. But we've watched Mike kind of grow in his personality and in his communication. And he met with the press yesterday after their mini camp. And he was asked specifically, our own Brady Henderson asked him this question about Sam Darnold and just Sam's kind of leadership, his stuff to him. Here was Mike McDonald talking about Sam Darnold. I want you to react to it.
Yeah, he's got some stuff to him.
Does he?
Yeah.
Did that surprise you?
No. We went against him. We felt it. Yeah, the thing you love about Sam is he's just a dude, man. He's he's like one of the guys. There's a sense of he's one of the guys, so he's right there with him and all the things. But that's him. But there's some to him. Like he's. Like, don't mess with him. He's got that edge to him, that competitiveness, and the guys respect that. And he's him. He's not trying to be anybody else, and you got to respect that about him.
What do you know about him?
Yeah, I love it. I love how Sam's career is sort of trending upward. I mean, you look at the last Seattle quarterback, Geno Smith. I mean, he didn't get good or put in a scheme and to be successful until really later on in his career. And if you look what Sam did last year, people are like, oh, the head coach carried the best receiver in football carried look at the running back. Yeah, I get that, and I understand that. My pushback is you still have to go out there and you still have to make the throws. And you look at Sam's year last year and what he's bringing, and really I look at that Minnesota game in Seattle where down the stretch, man, at Seattle, this dude made some amazing throws. And so when you're a defensive coach, you're like, oh, I want that on our team, right? And you sort of go out there and you get that. And it's always interesting, Brock, right? Like you've seen it, you've lived it. But when you have a quarterback that has a defensive head coach, it's always an interesting relationship, right? And I like the way that Mike is talking about Sam, and I say interesting because who knows how things are going down the stretch, what's going to happen, and how Mike handles it. But it's really good to hear Mike say that about him. And I would tend to agree. The interactions I've had with Sam have been great because he is just who he is. He's a California kid at heart, but he's a stone cold killer, man. And when he can throw the ball like he did last year, I mean, that's the reason he got that $100 million deal. It's for real.
Hey, Chase, I want to get back eventually to the leadership stuff, and I also want to get back to something that you just said there about what it's like playing for a defensive-minded head coach. But just sticking with Sam Darnold, I mean, we saw the 14 wins, as you mentioned, a whole lot of touchdown passes, the Pro Bowl. In your eyes, though, what was it at the end? What do you think caused some of the struggles he had over that final regular season game, and then obviously in the playoffs as well?
Yeah, it's really the 2-game stretch, right? Because they're half away from getting the 1 seed, and then the playoff game didn't go as well. When you're looking and really studying, I want to go back to the Detroit Lions game, right? I think it was week 18, and number 1 seed was on the line. There was stuff open, right? And Detroit did a really good job, I think, of that game of getting pressure to Sam Darnold quickly and with the front four. And like I mentioned earlier in the interview, that's one of the things that Sam struggles with. If he gets pressure on him early, it's not the same type of quarterback. Now he moves to get out of pressure and has made a lot of outside of the pocket plays. And I think that's what Detroit did. I mean, if you look, there's probably, and we broke this game down on our show at Fox, it was like 3 or 4 touchdowns, including a 2-point, I believe, that were open, 4th down. And if those are scored, it's a different game, it's a different thing. And people are always going to point to, oh, he's good in the regular season, he was great, but then when it mattered the most, right, there was some stuff to be left upon. He's never been put in a situation like that. If you look at his career, they've never really been a playoff team, any of the teams that he's been on, from Carolina to New York. So he's never had that situation. So that's a good thing, I think, if you're the Seahawks and say, hey, you need to grow from this because, yeah, you've been great. You're the franchise quarterback, all these right things. But when adversity hits and we need you to make plays in the most important part of the game, you have grown from that. You've been in this situation before.
Yeah, 14-year NFL vet Chase Daniel joining us now all over Fox Sports. Had a blast going a couple of UFL games with him, one in an absolute monsoon just a couple weeks ago. Chase, you did mention earlier, and I know you did a ton of prep and have over the last couple of years leading up to the draft. And I don't think it is coincidence that maybe the last couple of games of Sam and maybe the structure of that contract, I don't think it was too crazy that the Seahawks, if they liked a quarterback, and they liked a few in this draft, found one at the right time, at the right place, right on their board, and they do it. And they take Jalen Milroe, the second highest draft quarterback that John Schneider took here outside of Russell Wilson. That's it. In that 3rd round. Give me Chase Daniel's pre-draft view of Jalen Milroe and the fit here in Seattle.
Yeah, great question. The pre-draft view was really raw, but probably one of the most talented, and I'm not just talking about throwing the football, but just overall freak of athletes guys I have really ever seen in my short 2 or 3, 4 years really evaluating college quarterbacks. And there's something to be said about that because here's the thing, Brock, and what I think of, like there was a lot of talk, and including some of our shows, hey, he should be a first round. Is he a first round? Is he not? I never thought he was a first round talent in terms of throwing the football because he's still needed to improve on that, right? But if you watch the Alabama games closely, when he plays on time and in rhythm, he's accurate. I think the one thing that I saw on his film was he would rarely get past his first read because he knew he was such a good athlete that he could escape the pocket and he could make plays with his feet. And that's why I love this pick in the third round. One, it doesn't put pressure on him to play right away, right? That's Sam. But I do believe he's going to get packaged. And I do believe if you're the Seahawks and you believe in developing quarterbacks, which is such an underutilized skill in today's day and age. But if you believe in that, one, he can help you right away in Klint Kubiak's scheme. I would imagine that you need to get this guy on the field 10 plays a game. And I'm not saying with Sam Darnold out, he just has to. He's that type of dynamic of a playmaker with the ball in his hands. You have to get him a shot. But it's similar to what we're seeing, Brock, right, in this whole NFL. You got to be able to run and you got to be able to get out of trouble. And if they think, which I do think they believe, they can fix his mechanics. If they fix his mechanics and look, you got to see it and you only get experience by playing. If all those things go right, this could end up being a really good pick for them.
And that's a perfect lead into my next question, Chase. I'm just wondering, from your experience from 14 years in the NFL, how fixable can accuracy issues be? I mean, it seems like, we've seen some quarterbacks who entered the NFL with accuracy questions, fair or not. We've seen those guys improve. Josh Allen is probably the best example of that. I think Lamar Jackson was not known as the most accurate passer in college. We've seen it a few times, but in your kind of experience and in your opinion, how fixable are accuracy issues?
Yeah, I mean, look at the other side of the spectrum too with Anthony Richardson, right? Career 50-something% passer, and I think he's completed 48% of his passes, right? So it all comes down to, why are you inaccurate? Are you inaccurate because you're not going to the right spot at the right time and windows are tight, or are you inaccurate because of mechanics? There's two types, right? Like Brock, and that's what it's hard to really explain, but I've seen him. It's not like he's this most inaccurate passer in the world. Like, we've seen way worse. Even Josh Allen was, like you said, you mentioned it was perfect. Now, it does take work. It does take a quarterback coach. It does take development. It does take playing and experience. But for all we know, it could have been he hated playing with the college ball. In the NFL ball, he's Aaron Rodgers. You just never know. And I think that's why part of this evaluation process is so important. I thought at times, personally, this is just my opinion, when he was inaccurate, he was rushed. He did not trust his reads, and it was mechanical. Those are type of things you can fix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would tend to agree. And his completion percentage numbers, by the way, are like low to mid 60s. I mean, very, very different there. Yeah, which is totally fine. Chase Daniel here with us for the last couple minutes. What do you think of this Kubiak scheme?
Yeah, well, it puts defenses under pressure. And I think that's the biggest thing, watching them and knowing people. And, I was with New Orleans for 5 years, knowing people in the building and just what they said. When they're fully healthy, it's just you don't really know what to expect. And that's a good thing, because so often, right, defenses are doing things maybe pre-snap and hiding and blitzing, and they got six up on the line there and a double A-gap mug, right, where there's two linebackers walked over both guards or B-gap, whatever it is. There's so many ways for defenses to blitz the offense and to make us second guess. Really good offenses in this league, they're not stagnant. And you use motions, you use shifts, you use personnel groupings, you use everything at your disposal. And that's what a Klint Kubiak scheme is. And just on top of that, just the creativity. So you look at the weapons he has and the success I believe he had early in the year in New Orleans, I think that's probably why Mike McDonald liked him.
And Chase, getting back to the leadership question, I'm curious, just again, from your perspective, from playing in the NFL as long as you did, who were some of the best leaders at quarterback that you played with? Not, take talent aside, take, ability aside, just the best leaders. Who were some of the best leaders you played with at that position, and what truly makes a good leader as a quarterback?
Yeah, look, that's a great question. For me, it's just like a no-brainer. It's Drew Brees, right? And it's not only how he led, but it's when he led. And he never stopped leading. And he always led from the front, which I believe is what quarterbacks should do. If you're a lead by example guy, that's fine. If you're a lead by action guy, if you lead by words, whatever it is, I want to see my quarterback out in front. And it was just such all the small things, right? I think leadership's different for everyone. And I think that's the key with Drew is he knew how to talk to Marcus Colston differently than he talked to Jimmy Graham. Because Jimmy Graham, you could use a butt chewing in his face in front of the team, and he would respond that way. Whereas if you did it to Marcus Colston, a.k.a. the Quiet Storm, he would go in on him like it wouldn't be good. You have to pull him to the side. And there would be, I mean, he would talk to, he knew exactly the buttons to push. And I think for me, that's true leadership. But also, at times, leadership can be lonely. He was cool being lonely. If he really believed, and he got the guys to believe in us, and we won a lot of games there. And that was something that I always admired because so many times I feel like in today's culture, people are scared to step out in front. People are scared to maybe put themselves out there. Drew was never the case with that.
Hey, last question, and I'm going to steal it. Brady was going to ask you, but I'm going to ask you beforehand because we're going to let you run after this one. The difference between playing for an offensive-minded head coach, which you did the majority of your career, versus at the end of your career playing for a defensive-minded head coach, and in particular here for Sam, right, who's also had the gauntlet of both offense and defense. Just the difference between playing for head coaches with those different perspectives.
Yeah, look, I want to be completely honest here, and playing for an offensive-minded head coach as a quarterback, it's a lot better for the quarterback. The entire team, I think, mainly runs through the quarterback. When you have a head coach in your corner, maybe when stuff doesn't go right and has your back, that's really important. And we went through that with Andy Reid when Alex Smith, when we first got there, really wasn't playing up to par, stuck with him, was in his corner. And I've seen the opposite end of the spectrum where there's been some defensive head coaches when stuff goes awry and there's some vulnerabilities and there's some adversity that they start pointing fingers. And who do you think that, and I'm not saying this is Mike McDonald, but who do you think they're going to point the finger at? They're going to point the finger at the quarterback because we know, Brock, right? The quarterback, in my opinion, gets way, way too much credit when things go right and way too much blame when stuff goes wrong. And so those are what I have noticed mainly from the intricacies and from a deeper dive standpoint is that, hey, when stuff gets and whose job it is, a lot of times, and, you know, Mike's not in this position, but a lot of times they're pointing fingers.
Oh, that's good stuff.